John thinks he's ready to retire with $900,000 saved, but his wife, Linda, is not convinced. Are they being too cautious, or can he go now? Let's find out. Welcome back to Rise in Retirement. I'm Jet, Taco with me as always, and we are happy to be back with you. We've got John and Linda here.
Yeah.
And this one's kind of personal, and we see this quite often. We've got one spouse who is confident in the dollars and the numbers, wants to retire. We've got another spouse who disagrees and says, hey, I think we're jumping the gun a little early here.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you give up a big paycheck? That's the hardest mentality shift that we see all the time.
Yeah. She's looking at the same plan and going, I want to be a little bit more cautious, while John is thinking, no, it's time to go. I'm ready to go. I'm confident in the numbers. They're probably taking in different information. So we want to jump into this one. But before I do, we know over 90% of you watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscriber button before we move past you.
All right. So, John.
Case details.
Yeah, John's 63, Linda's 61. 900,000's broken down, 625 in IRAs, 175,000 brokerage, $100,000 in Roth, no debt. So they are free and clear on the mortgage. Monthly income goal, if they retire. So they've kind of built that forward-looking budget, right? $7,000 a month. They are looking at Social Security of about $3,200 a month combined once everything's collecting.
Yep.
Which means they'll have a withdrawal need of about $3,800 a month, which is about $45,600 a year, which is a 5.1% withdrawal rate. So they're right on that threshold where I get it, right? One may look at it and go, 900 grand's a lot.
5.1% is okay.
5.1, we can make it work, where Linda's going, oh gosh, I'm just scared. I'm scared. I don't want to have to go back to work. I don't want to have to cut expenses at some point just because, a couple bad things happen. So
it's funny. I have this image in my head that John and Linda are driving around, and John's aggressive and Linda's always holding on to the side of the car and telling him to slow down, right? Because that's kind of what it seems like here.
Yep.
Let's jump into the planning challenges here. And there's really two specific ones that we need to talk about.
Yep. Yeah. First one is, at the end of the day, the emotional side of this. You got married couple entering the biggest phase of their life. It's the dream, let's get to retirement and enjoy together. And yet you got two people that aren't on the same page.
Yeah.
You got one super confident. You got one, scared.
I've been in meetings like this before, and it's awkward.
How do you do it? I mean, I agree. You find yourself having to talk to one way, and then kind of like, oh gosh, am I going to make this person mad talking to them this way? It's tough because, again, it's personal, and there's this emotional split between two people now.
Well, and it's the question of who's right here, and it's not necessarily a black and white answer. I don't think you can answer the question and say, no, John's right here, or hey, Linda's right here, because there's so many variables that go into this. And the biggest planning challenge that we want to talk about is, I think probably the biggest potential roadblock or thing that they need to think about is what we call sequence of return risk.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's this risk that we're about to talk about that could make either one of them right or wrong in this scenario.
Agreed. Especially with a 5.1% withdrawal rate. So, I mean, that's in that, red light, or I'm sorry, yellow light, assessment, if you will. So they're in that spot where, hey, we gotta really dive into this, make sure we have some planning, which, by the way, speaking of, I just mentioned this, red light, yellow light, green light assessment. If that is something, when you watch these videos, you want to get your hands on your own personal situation, after this video, go to riseinretirement.com. You can request a 30-minute complimentary call where we can start looking at your situation, providing that assessment, doing a cost analysis, a risk analysis, beginning to develop a one-page plan that's all based around your situation. So some really good resources over there at riseinretirement.com.
So, Andrew, I want you to, and we're going to help you. We're going to show some things on the screen here in just a second, but let's talk about what sequence of return risk actually means, because we've talked about this on the show before, but we've never actually given a hardcore example of what it could do and how impactful it could be. So the first thing we want to talk about, and I'm going to set this up for you. Okay. So we already mentioned that they have a portfolio sized at 900,000. So we're going to talk about a favorable sequence of withdrawals and an unfavorable sequence of returns. Favorable sequence of returns.
Yep.
And an unfavorable sequence of returns. The first example that we're going to show is them taking no money out. So let's imagine that John and Linda didn't have a withdrawal need for a second.
Okay.
All right. So talk about sequence of return risk in a non-withdrawal scenario.
Yeah. And so what you'll see is this first scenario, if we can get this chart up on here, is the end of the day over a 10-year period, Jet, they have a 6.85% average return over those 10 years. What you'll see though is they start with 900,000. They're getting a lot of front-loaded return, meaning we got a 25% return in year one. So we went from 900 up to 1,125,000, then 18%, then 15, 14. And so you're getting all these really good years in a row.
Been a good run.
We got all the way up to, $2.7 million roughly at the end of year 8. And then we had 2 bad years in a row.
Okay.
15% loss, 25% loss. So we have a $1.7 million total. That is a 6.85% return from 900 grand to the 1.7. Now, next slide. It's what we call an unfavorable sequence of return risk, meaning we lose money on the front side. Started with 900 grand. Now we lost that 25%. Right out of the gate, we went down to 675, but we're not taking distributions on it. We lose 15%. Then we finish with all those back-ended returns. Guess what? We finish at 1.745, same thing. So if you're not taking income and you have a long-term runway, it really doesn't matter from a sequence of return, right? At the end of the day, this is 6.85%, no matter how we look at it.
We refer to that as having risk capacity.
Correct.
It's not about risk tolerance in this scenario, because if you've got 25% returns, 25% losses, 18% positive return, you're clearly having some risk exposure. Yeah. You're not going to have those types of returns or losses if you're not taking some risk with your investments. But the idea of risk capacity simply says, hey, we're not taking distributions. We don't need income from this. So if you give it a long enough period of time and most of the years are positive, it doesn't really matter in what order they happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the real challenge then are the next 2 slides we're going to show. And this is what could make either John or Linda right or wrong at the end of the day. And, my crystal ball broke, unfortunately. I don't know which direction or which timing is going to work out. But let's pull up the first slide where we're now taking those withdrawals. We're going to show them taking out that 45,600 that they need based on their 900,000. We get those favorable returns, Jet. So we're getting them all. First 8 years are positive double digits, and then we're ending with those 2 bad years. They're still in pretty darn good shape.
Yep.
Because they maximized return early, and they're at 1.3 million at the end of it, basically at the end of 10 years. So they saw their $900,000 grow over 10 years, even by taking those $45,000.
All while taking out the income they need. Yep.
So at the end of 10 years, if that were the case and that's what happened from a market standpoint, they'd be still looking pretty good at the end of 10 years, right? Their withdrawal rate's actually coming down. Now we go into the next part of this, and we have those unfavorable returns. They need income, so they're taking distributions from their 900,000. But Jet, talk through what happens if the returns are negative.
Well, it's the same example as we went through when they weren't taking withdrawals. Same exact return order, only unfavorable now. So they have 900,000. They lose 25% in year one. Yep. They're taking the income because they need it. Second year, they lose another 15%. They're taking the income still because they need it. And after 2 years, 900,000 is now worth 489,000.
Yeah.
And so this is sweat time for anyone. You get into a position like that. Now they have 8 great years after that, and every year they still need that income. So they're going to continue to pull that out. But look at the difference now. They started with 900,000. They took their income in the same sequence, only different return sequence. And at the end, they are now only at 814,000.
Yep.
So 10 years later, they're looking at this and going, gosh, we're drawing the portfolio down.
Yeah.
And we still have maybe 15, 20, 25 years left in our retirement.
Well, and think what's happening at the end of year 2 in this scenario.
You could circle that number.
That's a 10% withdrawal rate approximately at that point based on the ending balance and still needing 45,000. You've now doubled your withdrawal rate. Linda's furious, telling John, I told you so.
Well, what you can't predict in this, and this is the biggest problem with it.
Yep.
At the end of year 2, maybe even at the end of year 1, and it depends on the person here, you cannot predict the mental, emotional reaction that they will have to this and what that might cause them to do with their investment decisions.
Yep.
You also can't predict if they're, let's imagine they're relying on a financial advisor during this period of time. You can't predict what the type of advice that the advisor is going to give you, because what we're talking about here is a $900,000 asset allocation.
Yep.
No plan, no structure. They just have it invested, and it's that wait and see and hope mentality that we've talked about. Yep. And so this discounts the whole human error side of the equation, that more than likely, if you lose that much money in 2 years, and those are the first 2 years of your retirement, it is going to be really hard for you to sleep at night. And more than likely, the advisor is going to get that phone call that says, hey, I think we need to change what we're doing here. We can't afford to do this anymore.
Yeah. So how do you fix it? You know, what are the strategies that John and Linda can do before this creeps on them? And it's a 50-50 gamble of whether they get the right sequence of return or the wrong.
Well, I think what they're missing here is they need a drawdown plan. We call it an income plan, a formal written income plan. They have to design something moving into retirement where they can take that 45,000 plus that they need every year out of a predictable place.
Yeah.
You have to somewhat set your growth-oriented mentality aside on certain chunks of the money to do this properly. Because if you can eliminate some of that unpredictable sequence of return risk that we just talked about, now I think you can take your withdrawals, and if you're looking at it going, well, I've eliminated the risk that in year 1 I'm going to lose 25%, and in year 2 I'm going to lose 15%, at least on the money that they're taking paychecks from.
Correct.
I think that's the first step that they have to follow.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think we say it all the time. It's purpose-based investing. So to me, it's somewhere drawing a line down the middle of the assets and deciding, hey, where's income going to be coming from for the next 3 years? What buckets after that? And as long as you are taking those dollars off the chopping block, as far as what could just really drive this thing into the hole of taking withdrawals and losing 25%, that's what has to happen first, is a formal written income plan. That's the number one risk that you have to address at the end of the day.
Totally agree. Red, yellow, green time. What color are you giving them?
It's a yellow, because I go back to 5.1 is in that yellow zone. Said that early on. Still think that things can still go wrong here, right? But I think they can go yellow to green pretty easily if they do the right planning, proper income planning at the end of the day.
Listen, retirement doesn't work if you're dragging one of your spouses along. I think for in this scenario, a plan brings the two of them together a lot closer to where they can make a more informed decision and both feel comfortable with it. So ultimately, if you're not on the same page, you're probably missing something. It could be a plan. It could be one of you is actually right and you don't have enough.
Yeah, maybe it's one more year. Hey, let's do this one more year. Keep working. Work with our advisor. Make sure that we have a really solid plan in place that we both understand fully to give us the confidence.
Yeah. The last thing we want to see anyone do is put a plan together that essentially makes you rely on hope that the market works out in your favor and has a favorable sequence. Don't do that. Head over to riseandretirement.com. Get a hold of that 30-minute free phone consultation with an advisor. Let us assess your situation, and we will see you right back here next time on Rise and Retirement.